One book at a time. Today's selection is Mental Efficiency and Other Hints to Men and Women.
Today, we will delve deep into a topic that I believe all of us need to think seriously about. Have you ever wondered this when you can run a marathon, or at least 5 kilometers easily, and feel healthy afterward, right? You are willing to sweat along with exercising regularly and eating scientifically, to have a toned along with strong body. But can you sit still in one place to focus on thinking about a complex problem and solve it in just 5 minutes without being distracted? Be honest with yourself to see if you find your mind frequently wandering like a lost kitten or jumping from one idea to another without being able to stick to a certain topic long enough to truly understand deeply or find a solution. We spend hours every week hitting the gym for our muscles, but leave the brain being the control center of all our thoughts, along with actions and emotions, in a weak and easily distracted state. This is indeed a paradox worth reflecting on, isn't it? Sounds familiar, right? And that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Arnold Bennett, being an eminent writer of the last century, had a very good term to describe this condition accurately as mental flabbiness, or tentatively translated as the flabbiness of the spirit. Friends, when just like your muscles, if they are not exercised regularly, they will become loose along with weak and ineffective. Our spirit is the same when we do not actively train the ability to focus, along with critical thinking, or the ability to maintain attention. Then our brain will become flabby, leading to less flexibility, along with being easily distracted and unable to operate at its full capacity. Think about it when we are willing to sweat on the treadmill, along with lifting heavy weights and tracking every gram of protein intake to have a toned, along with strong body. We consider physical care a worthy investment for health and appearance, yet we carelessly let our brains be flabby, along with poorly focused and easily distracted by everything around, from constant phone notifications, along with social media status lines, to aimless thoughts without beginning or end. We accept living with a brain that only operates at 50% or even 20% of its true potential, so it is a pity, isn't it? And this mental flabbiness is not merely about the fact that we cannot focus for 5 minutes, but it affects every aspect of our lives. From reading books without absorbing, along with ineffective studying, to solving problems at work, or even fully enjoying a conversation with loved ones. A flabby mind will make it difficult for us to make wise decisions, along with easy to procrastinate and frequently feeling overwhelmed or lacking motivation. It erodes self-confidence and prevents us from reaching our highest potential. Sounds pessimistic, doesn't it? But wait, because what I want to share with you today is not to complain about this general situation or to blame a world with too much information, but to reveal a path along with a time-tested method to transform our brains from an easily distracted, along with lazy mind, into an efficient machine and a disciplined, along with sharp mental apparatus. Imagine a brain that can focus deeply along with processing information quickly and making wise decisions, then persistently pursuing goals. A brain that you can control rather than being controlled by random thoughts. And that is not a far-fetched dream. And the best thing is that this method is not some newly emerging self-help trend, nor is it an expensive app or a grand course that requires you to pay a lot. It comes from a wisdom that has stood the test of time, being a classic book that perhaps many of us have never heard of. That is Mental Efficiency and Other Hints to Men and Women by Arnold Bennett, a work written from the early 20th century, but his advice still remains valid and even more necessary than ever in our chaotic world. Bennett did not just point out the problem, but he also gave extremely practical, along with easy-to-apply suggestions for us to start the journey of gym for the mind today. So how do we start this journey and how to hit the gym for our brain properly? Do not go anywhere, because in the next part, we will together delve into the gems of wisdom that Bennett left behind. And I promise after this video, you will perceive mental training no longer as something luxurious or difficult, but as an essential, along with attractive part, like any of your gym sessions. Ready yet? When we start now. Chapter 1: The Disease of Mental Sluggishness. Have you ever vaguely felt that you are living but not really living to the fullest? Could it be that days just pass by while we work along with, we entertain ourselves, and we interact but lack something core? And I bet at least once you have experienced that feeling. Arnold Bennett, being an author I deeply admire, gave this state a very straightforward name as mental inefficiency, or, as I like to call it, in today's context, a disease of mental sluggishness. And in this first chapter, we will together accurately diagnose that disease to see how it manifests in the lives of most of us. Be honest with yourself. When have you ever struggled to focus on a truly meaningful book while your finger automatically swiped to the phone to check useless news? Have you ever set a goal to learn a new skill, but then found yourself immersed for hours watching Netflix or YouTube, and that feeling of helplessness when you know you should do something better for yourself, but cannot resist the pull of easy, along with temporary pleasures, which is very familiar, isn't it? This is the first and most common symptom of this sluggish disease, being a sense of powerlessness when trying to focus or detox from habits that consume time along with energy, but bring no long-term value. It is like an invisible gravity pulling us away from the path we know is right, only to push us into a vicious cycle of distraction along with procrastination, causing us to struggle, but frequently lose to our own minds. Bennett says that our mind, if not trained, is exactly like a spoiled child or a wild animal. It sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? But think about it. When a spoiled child is a child who demands instant gratification along with lacking self-control and will act out if every wish is not met. Our mind is the same when it craves constant stimulation along with immediate comfort, and it does not want to do difficult things or things that require effort along with patience. It wants dopamine along with wanting sensational news and wanting quick solutions, even when we know that those things are not good for us. Then the mind still struggles, only to still pull us toward those trivial pleasures. What about a wild animal when it lives by instinct, along with natural reflexes, without the ability for deep thinking or long-term planning or self-questioning? Most of us are living like that, aren't we? When we react to external stimuli, such as emails, along with social media notifications and sudden requests, instead of actively shaping our day. We let random streams of thought pass by without grasping along with analyzing or directing them, causing our minds to hop from one idea to another and from one task to another without focus without a clear purpose, because that is not freedom, but that is chaos. So why do we let our minds be so wild, and why do we easily indulge its demands then? Bennett points out a deep root cause that we often avoid: the pain of deep thinking. It sounds strange, doesn't it? What is painful about thinking? But try to think carefully about it. Because deep thinking, along with solving a complex problem and learning a new concept, truly requires a lot of mental energy. It is not an easy process, as it requires us to focus, along with being patient and having to face uncertainty, along with sometimes even failure. Our brain is essentially designed to save energy. So when faced with a choice between a difficult task requiring deep thinking and an easy, along with immediately interesting task, it usually chooses the easier one. That is why scrolling social media is easier than reading a financial report, or watching a movie is easier than writing an essay, and listening to a podcast is easier than thinking about a philosophical issue. We fear discomfort along with fearing the initial boredom of learning. And we fear the feeling of being stuck when facing a problem, only to choose the path of least resistance, which is living by reflex along with by instinct, and indulging every impulsive whim of our mind. We use easy pleasures as immediate painkillers to avoid the pain of having to actually use our brains. And this is what Bennett wants to emphasize being a quite powerful statement. But I believe it is true that mental inefficiency is the root cause of unhappiness. Think about it, when if you cannot control your thoughts, then you cannot control your life. If you cannot focus on important goals, then you will never achieve them. And if you cannot think clearly about issues, then you will make wrong decisions, or worse, make no decisions at all. The feeling of restlessness, along with emptiness and aimlessness that we frequently experience, is not because we lack money, or lack external success, or lack relationships, but because we lack the ability to control our brains. We feel helpless, along with frustrated, and ultimately unhappy, because our mind is not a tool serving us, but instead becomes our master, like a wild horse without a bridle, pulling us everywhere without a clear destination. We can own everything in the world, but if our mind is still sluggish, along with still dominated by momentary desires and distractions, then we will never truly find peace or lasting joy. This sluggish disease not only affects work productivity, but it also gnaws at our very happiness and meaning of life. So we have completed the diagnosis when we have identified the symptoms as powerlessness, when focusing along with the craving for easy pleasures. We have seen our mind like a spoiled child or a wild animal, and we have understood that the root cause is because we avoid the pain of deep thinking. And we have affirmed that this is the source of unhappiness. It sounds a bit gloomy, doesn't it? But do not worry, because the purpose of diagnosis is not to discourage us, but for us to clearly perceive the problem. Because only when we admit there is a disease can we seek a cure, and that is exactly what we will do together in the following chapters. Are you ready to tame the wild horse in your mind yet? When prepare for the next chapter, where we will begin to explore ways to master attention and shape our lives. Chapter 2: Willpower, the Forgotten Muscle. I know that when willpower is mentioned, we often think of something magical along with an innate quality that only superhuman people have. Like we often say that he has nerves of steel while I do not, or I wish I had a strong will like others. But that is an extremely harmful misunderstanding, and also the reason why many of us feel stuck when wanting to change ourselves. Arnold Bennett, with his subtlety along with practicality, challenged that notion when he said that willpower is not a miracle, along with not something you are born with or without, but it is a muscle. That is right when it is a muscle, and just like the muscles in the arms, along with the legs, it exists in each of us. But if not exercised, it will be weak, along with flabby and almost useless. Conversely, if trained properly, it will become strong along with flexible and can help you overcome all challenges. Try to think about it When have you ever wanted to run a marathon without any prior training? Or do you think you would lift a weight of 100 kilograms in your very first gym session? Surely not right. But when it comes to willpower, we often fall into a similar mistake. What is our common mistake then? That is setting goals that are too big, along with overwhelming right from the start. The most classic example I often hear, and perhaps many of you have also experienced, is that from tomorrow, I will wake up at 4 in the morning every day to exercise and read books. Sounds heroic, doesn't it? But that journey usually ends quickly, and sometimes after only one morning. When the alarm rings, we turn it off and go back to sleep, only for the consequence to be disappointment, along with self-deprecation and further reinforcing the false belief that I have no willpower. And that is exactly where Bennett's strategy shines, when he does not say you have to do great things immediately, but instead, he encourages us to train willpower through the smallest, along with most trivial things. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But think back to the gym example. When you start with the lightest weights, along with the most basic exercises to build a foundation. With willpower, it is the same when Bennett suggests that instead of setting a goal to wake up at 4 in the morning, then start by standing up as soon as the alarm rings, instead of pressing the snooze button for a few more precious minutes. Or, like folding the blankets neatly right after waking up, even though knowing you will lie on them again later, or simply finishing an unpleasant email you have postponed before doing any other pleasant work. Why are these small things important? Because every time you win over a small temptation, along with every time you complete a trivial task but have determined to do it, then that is a rep for your willpower muscle. You are sending a signal to the brain that I am the one in control, and you are building a chain of small, along with consecutive victories to create motivation and reinforce belief in your own ability. It is like the first, along with the most solid bricks to build a sturdy building. And of course, even those small things will sometimes feel uncomfortable. And that is when we reach the final point, being the importance of accepting the initial discomfort. When you start going to the gym, you will feel muscle soreness being a sign of growth, along with the way your body adapts and becomes stronger. With willpower, it is the same when the initial feeling of discomfort, when you force yourself to do something unwanted, no matter how small is the sign, you are stretching your willpower muscle. Do not fear it, and do not run away from it, but see it as a companion, along with a sign that you are making progress. Remember that people with strong willpower are not those who never feel uncomfortable, but they are those who have learned to accept and overcome that discomfort bit by bit every day. Therefore, in this chapter, the core message is that willpower is not a gift, but a skill that can be trained. Start from the smallest, along with most trivial things in daily life, and accept the initial discomfort as an inevitable part of the development process. You will be surprised at the hidden power you can tap into, so try applying it today, and I believe you will start to feel the difference very quickly. In the next chapter, we will explore how Bennett guides us on how to manage our attention, being another key factor to achieve maximum mental efficiency. Chapter 3: Mental Calisthenics. Our goal in this chapter is very clear, which is to together learn specific, along with practical exercises to train focus, or as Bennett calls it, mental calisthenics. Imagine this when you are at the gym. Then the first exercise is not lifting heavy weights or sprinting, but a basic yet extremely important move, which is balancing. Similarly, in the gym of the brain, the first exercise Bennett introduces is single-point concentration. Does it sound simple when Bennett says to choose any topic, whether it is a problem you are facing or a philosophical concept, and even just an object on your desk? Your task is to keep your mind on that topic, along with not allowing it to wander. You will see immediately that your brain will start to rebel, as it will want to think about electricity bills, along with unanswered messages and lunch. This is when you must gently but firmly pull it back like a hyperactive puppy that you do not scold, but you train to return to its position. Think about it when the modern world with TikTok along with Reels and constant notifications causes our brains to be fragmented into hundreds of small pieces every minute. Then this ability for single-point concentration is gradually fading. Bennett, even though living in the last century, foresaw this danger. So he believed that training the ability to keep the mind in one place is the foundation for all other mental performance. You can start with 2 to 3 minutes a day, then gradually increase to 5 or 10 minutes, and I assure you that in just the first 5 minutes, you will see how difficult it is, but also, precisely because of that, how effective it is, as this is the most basic exercise to train your attention muscle. Next, let us talk about another exercise that we often overlook because we think it is too difficult or boring, which is reading books. But not all kinds of books have the same effect as when instead of scrolling through sensational news online with headlines like 5 tips for instant weight loss or harmless entertainment articles, then Bennett encourages us to try reading a classic literature book or a work of philosophy or a thick history book. Sounds a bit heavy-duty, doesn't it? But this is exactly a high-class gym session for your brain, because when reading these works, your brain is forced to work. It must follow a complex chain of reasoning, along with having to remember many characters or events, then having to synthesize information from long paragraphs and having to ponder abstract ideas. It is not a passive reception of information, but an active and deep thinking process. When you read a classic novel, you must remember relationships along with details and the psychological development of characters. When you read a philosophy book, you must try to understand a system of thought along with arguments built over dozens or hundreds of pages. This is the heavy weightlifting exercise for your concentration and critical thinking to train the ability to maintain attention, along with the ability to analyze and the ability to synthesize information, which are invaluable skills in every aspect of life. No need to be Plato or Kant immediately, but just one chapter a day, even for only 15 to 20 minutes, is enough for you to start feeling the difference. Now we upgrade the difficulty a bit with the exercise on discipline in thought, when Bennett wants us to learn how to force the brain to complete a logical chain from beginning to end. Have you ever started thinking about a problem then? After only a few minutes, your mind has jumped to another completely unrelated problem. For example, you're thinking of how to solve a trouble at work. Then think about what to eat tonight. And then remember, you have not replied to friends' messages, which is a very common situation. Bennett says that this is when we must apply iron discipline, as when you start a chain of thought, then commit to yourself that you will go to the end of that chain. Think from premises to logical steps, along with evidence and counter-arguments, to finally reach a conclusion. Do not allow yourself to give up halfway, and do not let your mind switch channels just because it feels bored or difficult. Choose a real problem in your life, such as a financial decision, or a personal conflict, or a work plan, to ask questions about why it happened, along with what the options are, then the pros and cons of each option, and what the long-term consequences are. Force yourself to think systematically until you reach the most reasonable conclusion, or at least a clear action plan. This is not just simple weightlifting, but this is you learning how to use complex muscle groups to perform a complete movement, along with a purposeful movement chain to train structured, along with systematic thinking and problem-solving skills, which are skills that every leader, along with every successful person, needs to have. Bennett emphasizes that all these exercises are not things you do once and then stop, because just like going to the gym, you cannot have muscles after only one session. To see the effect you need, persistence, and he gives a specific number, which is to spend at least 30 minutes a day to sweat the brain. Sweating the brain is a very visual way of speaking, as it implies that you do not just read passively or not just think fleetingly, but you must actually make your brain operate at full capacity and must feel tired after a high concentration session. 30 minutes a day is not too long a period, but it is enough to create a great difference over time. Think about it when 30 minutes a day multiplied by 7 days is 3.5 hours a week. Then multiplied by 52 weeks. Then you will have nearly 180 hours of mental training each year. Imagine how strong your brain will become with that many hours of intentional practice. The benefits of sweating the brain for 30 minutes every day are enormous, such as improving focus, making your attention span increase significantly, along with better memory, helping you easily store and retrieve information more. Clearer thinking will help ideas be arranged coherently, along with logically and effective problem solving helps you perceive issues from many angles to find more creative solutions. Additionally, there is better emotional control when a well-trained mind is usually less disturbed by small things. Bennett affirms that after a period of persistence, you will see your brain become more flexible along with reacting faster and, most importantly, more efficient. You will no longer feel stuck in a mess of chaotic thoughts, but instead, you will have a sharp, along with reliable tool to face every challenge. That is it, friends, as mental calisthenics is not a miracle, but a process requiring persistence along with discipline and a small commitment every day. Arnold Bennett pointed us the way, and it still remains valid to this day when the distracting factors are many times more than in his time. Start today by choosing an exercise, whether it is keeping the mind on one point or reading a difficult book, or forcing yourself to think with discipline about an issue and commit to doing it for 30 minutes. Then you will be surprised with what you can achieve. In the next chapter, we will explore deeper into managing time along with mental energy to see how we optimize those work shifts of the brain to achieve the highest efficiency. Chapter 4: The Art of Living with Oneself. It sounds simple, but to live harmoniously with oneself is a journey full of challenges, along with requiring persistent practice. The goal of this chapter is to effectively apply mental efficiency to self-awareness, along with controlling our emotions, when Bennett not only provides theory, but also provides practical suggestions so that we can truly master the house of our inner self. Bennett has a very interesting view of us, and it is the starting point for all self-awareness, because he likens our mind, along with our body, to a complex and sophisticated machine, then having extraordinary capabilities. It automates many functions along with processing information and reacting to the surrounding world. But the key point here is that you are not that machine, but you are the operator of it. Imagine you are driving a most modern supercar when the car can drive itself, along with being able to adjust speed itself. But if you do not sit in the driver's seat, or do not clearly understand the buttons along with its limits, or worse, you just let it run by its own will, then an accident is inevitable. Similarly, if you just let the machine of your mind run rampantly, along with reacting unconsciously to every external stimulus, to let negative thoughts or impulsive emotions take control, then you will constantly encounter trouble. You will feel passive along with being swept away by the current of life without any direction. So self-awareness is the key. Understanding that you have the power of control along with the power to operate this machine is the first step to truly living a purposeful life. Personally, I find this one of the most liberating concepts I have ever learned, as it helped me escape the victim mentality and realize that no matter how difficult external circumstances are, I still always have the right to choose how I react. When you have realized you are the operator, then the next step is learning how to operate the machine effectively, especially when it faces powerful vibrations such as anger or anxiety. Bennett does not tell us to suppress emotions, because that is not healthy, along with being almost impossible. But instead, he advises us to analyze logically instead of reacting emotionally. Think about it when you are frustrated because of a traffic jam or disappointed because a project is not as expected. Then our initial reaction is usually anger, along with complaining and blaming. But Bennett would ask whether anger makes the road no longer jammed, or whether it makes the project more successful, or it just makes you more tired, along with wasting mental energy pointlessly. Similarly, with anxiety, which often stems from our focusing on things outside of our control, such as an uncertain future, along with the opinions of others and sudden incidents. Bennett encourages us to dissect that worry, to ask, what is the worst thing that could happen, and whether I can do anything to prepare for it, even if just a little. Often when we face the worst case scenario with reason, then we will realize it is not as scary as we imagined, or at least we can come up with a backup plan. This is not to eliminate emotions, but to put them into a more reasonable framework, allowing you to react consciously instead of letting them control you unconditionally, because that is you operating your machine rather than letting it go off course by itself. Controlling emotions well will lead to another important state that Bennett particularly emphasizes as inner satisfaction. True happiness does not come from things outside, such as money along with fame and social status, because those things can bring momentary joy, but they are not sustainable. According to Bennett, sustainable happiness comes from inner control, along with from your mastering your thoughts and actions. You can have everything in the world, but if your mind is chaotic, along with constantly insecure and worried about things that cannot be controlled, then you still will not find peace. Conversely, A person may not have much material wealth, but if they calmly accept the situation, along with finding joy in small things, and well control their reactions to difficulties, then they will be much happier. Seeking satisfaction from within means focusing on your values along with goals and on what you can do instead of what you cannot change. It means learning to find joy in the process of effort, along with in personal growth and in completing the tasks that you set for yourself. It is not just achieving goals that brings happiness, but happiness lies in the very process of your effort, step by step, to master your machine. This is a lesson that I took a lot of time to internalize, and it is still a continuous journey. But when you start practicing, then you will see yourself less swayed by external events, along with having a more solid foundation for peace in the soul. So how to build and maintain this inner control? Especially when our machine tends to automatically run along negative ruts, then a powerful tool that we often overlook is our inner monologue. That is what the small voice in your head is saying to you every day, because if it constantly criticizes, along with doubting and being pessimistic, then blaming, then it is sabotaging your machine from the inside. Bennett encourages us to actively change inner monologue into positive along with constructive. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to your best friend, who is the person you want to encourage along with help and see them succeed. Instead of saying, "I am so bad," along with, "I cannot do it," then try saying, "I can learn from this mistake, so then I will try once more or try another way." Instead of saying everything is terrible, then ask yourself, what good I can find in this situation, or at least what I can learn. Instead of criticizing yourself when making a mistake, then remind yourself that everyone has times of making mistakes. And the important thing is that I have realized it to then do better next time. This needs practice. So spend a few minutes every day listening to what you are saying to yourself. When you start to encounter a negative thought, then stop to identify it, and after that, actively replace it with a more positive, along with more constructive thought. Bennett believes that this is one of the most effective exercises to train willpower along with controlling the mind. You will see that just by changing the way you talk to yourself, then your whole worldview will also change accordingly, because positive inner monologue is the best fuel for your machine to operate effectively, along with durably. So, in the art of living with oneself, we have discovered that we are not victims of circumstances or emotions, but are the operators of our own machine. We have learned to face anger along with anxiety with reason, then seek happiness from inner control and train inner monologue to become our own best friend. everything returns to one point, that you are the one with the power of control, along with the power to choose how you think and feel, then act. This is not an easy journey, but it is extremely worth your investing time along with energy. In the next chapter, we will go deep into how to maintain mental discipline, along with turning these insights into daily habits. Chapter 5: Marriage and Relationships Through the Lens of Reason. We will delve deep into an aspect that perhaps many of us are looking for answers to, which is how to apply mental efficiency to the most intimate relationships, along with social and family relationships. Bennett does not only talk about work or study, but he views life comprehensively, and he understands that personal happiness cannot be separated from the quality of the interactions around us. Be honest with yourself. When how many times have you tried to fix your spouse, along with children, and even your close friends? We believe that we know what is best for them. So then, if they only change a little bit, everything will be much more perfect. We spend so much energy to persuade along with, to nag and to argue only with the hope that the other person will realize their mistake, then become like the ideal model in our minds. Bennett emphasizes a truth that is hard to accept, but extremely liberating, that trying to change others is a huge waste of mental energy. Think about it when you spend the whole afternoon arguing about the other person's habit of forgetting dirty socks, or the way they arrange dishes not to your liking. Then what are you doing? You are burning precious energy that could be used to do much more meaningful things, because the only person you can effectively change is yourself. When you understand and accept that each person is an independent individual with their own habits, along with thoughts and nature, then you will release a large amount of pressure along with frustration. Accepting differences does not mean you have to agree with everything, but that you free yourself from the burden of wanting to control what is outside of your control. That is an act of intelligence along with energy saving, as instead of fighting the winds, then learn how to adjust your sails. Patience sounds simple, but Bennett calls it an advanced exercise of intelligence because it requires us to resist the instinct to react immediately, along with wanting everything to go our way and wanting to solve problems in quick ways, but often without consideration. In a world full of immediacy, then patience becomes a superpower. When you face an unpleasant situation in the family, such as a small misunderstanding along with an unintentional word or an action that makes you annoyed, then, instead of exploding, you spend a few seconds or a few minutes breathing to think about which reaction brings the best results in the long run. That is not just enduring, but it is a conscious decision to use your mind wisely instead of letting emotions lead the way. Patience helps us view problems more objectively while allowing us to look for solutions instead of just reacting emotionally. It is the ability to delay the momentary satisfaction of having to speak your mind to achieve a better result for the relationship. Just like a wise investor, knowing that the greatest rewards often come from persistence along with a long-term vision. Oh, here it is, the silent enemy of every relationship, which is whining and petty criticism. All of us have experienced it, either as the speaker or the listener, about the grumbles of someone not closing the toothpaste cap, or about the damp towel on the floor and their forgetting to buy milk according to the list. Small things accumulate like tiny raindrops, but can wear away even a rock. Bennett says that these things are not only useless, but also erode the foundation of the relationship because we think we are educating others. But in fact, we are creating a negative atmosphere, making the other person feel attacked, along with not being appreciated, and gradually building up a defensive wall. Instead, you should ask yourself whether my saying this brings positive change, or it is just a way to relieve my momentary emotions while causing discomfort to others. If you truly want change, then find a way to communicate effectively with respect, along with focusing on the solution rather than with persistent complaints. Sometimes accepting the small flaws of others, or simply doing those things yourself without complaining, is exactly the most effective way to maintain harmony along with mental energy for both. The core thing Bennett wants us to understand is that a good relationship does not happen naturally when it is not just a story of romantic affection along with burning emotions or destiny. Those factors are certainly important, along with being catalysts and the initial foundation, but to maintain along with nurture and develop a sustainable, then happy relationship, it requires the effort of the mind along with reason. It requires you to think along with analyzing situations, then planning for the future and performing consciously. You must use your mind to understand the partner along with, to empathize, and to find ways to resolve conflicts constructively, to know when to speak and when to be silent. You must use reason to overcome petty conflicts, along with overlooking unnecessary mistakes, and to focus on the bigger picture of common happiness. This does not mean the relationship becomes cold or calculating, but on the contrary, when you invest intelligence in it, then you are building a solid foundation for affection to flourish healthily without being eroded by misunderstandings or pointless arguments, along with lack of patience. Just like a bridge engineer, when you need love for the project, but you also need knowledge along with skills so that the bridge does not collapse to be sturdy before all storms. That is it, friends, when this is marriage and relationships through the lens of Arnold Bennett. It is not about becoming a cold or mechanical person, but about becoming a wiser, along with more effective person in the way we interact with the most important people in our lives. Remember, the key points are to accept the differences of the partner, to not waste energy on changing them while training patience as an advanced intellectual exercise. Eliminate whining along with petty criticism to preserve harmony along with energy. And most importantly, understand that a good relationship requires the effort of the mind, not just pure affection. Try applying these principles in the next week, even with just the smallest relationship, to see the difference they bring. Because I believe you will be surprised with that result. In Chapter 6, we will explore another equally interesting aspect of our journey to find mental efficiency. Chapter 6, The True Meaning of Success. Hey, welcome to a chapter that can completely change the way you look at your life, as we are often caught up in a definition of success that society has imposed right. From the time we were children, we have been taught that success is having a high-paying job along with a big house and a luxury car, then a huge bank account. Those are the things that we should strive to get, being the measure for others to evaluate our value. But is that all? Or is that the true meaning of success that Arnold Bennett wants us to reflect on in his book Mental Efficiency? Then, I believe not. Let us delve a bit deeper, because here is the key point. As there is a big difference between success by social standards and your personal efficiency. Success in the eyes of many people is something tangible along with measurable, and often the result of competition along with comparison. You are richer than someone, along with you are more famous than someone, and you have more than someone, just like a race where you only feel victorious when seeing others behind your back. But personal efficiency is different, as it does not compare with anyone. It is a state where you master your mind along with mastering your time and mastering your emotions. It is the ability for you to optimize your inner life so that every day passing by is meaningful, along with being fully experienced by you. Bennett believes that mental efficiency is the foundation for all true success, because if you do not control your mind, then all material wealth also becomes meaningless. And here is a harsh reality that we all see around regarding why many people are wealthy, along with having huge assets and power in their hands, but their spirit is still terrifyingly poor. Why do they still feel empty along with still worrying restlessly and still feeling a lack of control over their lives, or even feeling miserable? You can have $1 million mansion, but if you cannot sleep well every night because of pressure along with anxiety or a feeling of emptiness, or if you always have to search for external things to fill an internal void, and if you cannot enjoy present moments but keep chasing the next goal, then are you truly successful? Bennett would say that you are severely lacking mental efficiency when you have everything outside, but the inside is like a ruin, along with lacking arrangement and lacking the necessary efficiency to truly feel peace along with happiness. They can have power, but are dominated by emotions, while they can have a lot of money, but do not know how to use their time wisely, but keep plunging into the endless vortex of work, only to then miss precious moments with family, along with friends, or even themselves. This is the trap of the definition of material success, as it promises a fulfilling life at the end of the road, but takes away our ability to live that road fully. So what is true success then? When Bennett and I both believe that success is not a destination, but a journey. It is not what you get, but how you live. Let us redefine success as the ability to live an awakened life and fully in every moment. Think about this when you have the ability to wake up every morning with a clear mind, along with being full of energy and not being pulled back by aimless worries. You have the ability to deeply feel the joy of a hot cup of coffee, along with the warmth of the morning sun, or the genuine connection when chatting with a friend. You have the ability to focus completely on the work being done, no matter how small, and find joy in completion. That is when you master your mind, along with not letting worries or external pressures pull you away. You choose the way you react to life instead of letting life impose on you, because that is living purposefully along with consciously and with inner control. True wealth is not how much money is in the bank, but how much peace is in your soul, along with how much fulfillment is in every minute you experience. And to achieve this, then what do we need to do when we need to get out of the meaningless race? The race that we are being caught up in, like the race to earn more money along with, to have a higher position and to shop more often, promises that when achieving those things, then we will find peace. We often tell ourselves that when I have enough money, I will retire and live peacefully, or when I get promoted, I will be less stressed. But the truth is, peace is just like happiness, as it is not a reward at the end of the road, but it is a choice, along with a state of mind that you can nurture right from now and right here. Escaping that race does not mean you give up, but that you choose another race, which is the race to master yourself, to build mental efficiency. It does not mean you stop striving or have no ambition, but that you change the criteria of success. You no longer follow what society defines for you, but you define for yourself when you prioritize inner peace along with wakefulness and the ability to live fully every moment over material symbols. True success does not lie in what you own, but in how you live, along with how you feel and how you master your inner life. Start from the smallest thing, which is mastering one of your mornings, along with mastering a moment you are experiencing and mastering a thought running in your head, so that you will see true wealth along with true peace, are right at your fingertips. Chapter 7: Reading and Writing as a Therapy. Let us start with the power of journaling. As when mentioning diaries, many people immediately think of recording grumbles along with negative emotions. But Bennett, along with I, completely agree when viewing journaling as a completely different tool, which is a means to systematize thoughts. It is like you are cleaning the room of your mind when all messy ideas, along with vague concerns once placed on paper, suddenly take shape along with order. You can see them along with analyzing them, and even find solutions to problems that you previously only felt hazy about. Personally, I find that writing has many times helped me escape from vicious cycles in thought, to turn tangled threads into a clear map. It is not a notebook for complaining, but a laboratory of ideas, along with a safe place for you to experiment and arrange, then even contradict yourself. Imagine if every night you spend 10 to 15 minutes writing down what happened during the day, along with prominent thoughts and emotions experienced, but not to drown in them, but to arrange them into clear drawers. You will be surprised at how your mind becomes clear along with more insightful, because that is a great way to understand yourself, thereby making wiser decisions. Next is how to read books effectively. As in today's era of information explosion, we are easily caught up in the trend of fast reading, along with skimming and trying to swallow as many books as possible, just to feel that we are knowledgeable or keep up with the latest trends. But Bennett gives a piece of advice going against the stream, which is to read less, but reflect more instead of skimming for quantity. The true value of reading doesn't lie in the number of books you read, but in the level you absorb, along with turning that knowledge into your own. You know when a book is read slowly, along with being pondered over every word and being connected with personal experiences, then it will be worth 100 times more than 10 books read carelessly. Take time to stop, along with asking questions and relating to your own experience. Making notes along with summarizing and even trying to re-explain to others is the way to turn information into wisdom, which is how we truly master content, rather than just merely consuming it. I often reread a few good passages in favorite books, so that each time like that, I discover a new layer of meaning, as if the book is whispering something deeper to me. The connection between language and thought is an extremely profound thing that Bennett pointed out when he emphasized that using precise language not only helps us communicate more effectively, but is also a direct tool to shape clear thinking. Think about it as if you cannot express an idea articulately. Then perhaps you do not truly understand it clearly, because vagueness in language often reflects vagueness in thought. When you select each word along with structuring each sentence, then you are simultaneously rearranging the puzzle pieces in your thoughts. It helps you eliminate ambiguity, along with sharpening concepts and finally enhancing critical thinking ability. Building the habit of using the right words along with the right context not only makes your words carry more weight, but also helps your thinking process become sharper along with more coherent. It is a process of continuous training, but brings great efficiency to both communication and personal thinking. And finally, when we combine both effective reading along with conscious writing, then we will gradually create an extremely precious thing, being a quiet sanctuary in our mind through reading culture. In a world full of noise along with distraction, then the ability to retreat into a peaceful inner space where thoughts are arranged along with ideas are nurtured is a privilege. That is the place where you find stillness along with focus and the energy to face life. Bennett foresaw the importance of this, as training the mind through reading and writing culture is not just learning, but building a solid fortress against the chaos of the outside world. It is the source of mental resilience, along with being the place where you can regenerate energy and find balance again. It is not escaping reality, but building a solid foundation so that you can face, along with overcoming every challenge with a calm and clear mindset. So we have explored Chapter 7 together, where Bennett provides us with specific tools along with mental therapies that anyone can apply. From turning a diary into a thought map, to reading books with deep contemplation, then training language to sharpen thoughts, then all are directed towards building a clear, along with resilient and peaceful mind. I hope these ideas will inspire you to start your own journey. Try writing along with. Try reading more consciously to feel the change in your own thinking. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into another aspect of mental performance, which is an equally important aspect. Chapter 8, Pocket Philosophies for Modern Life. You know when in our modern life, every day passing by has dozens of small things that can make us blow a fuse right. From the bus being 5 minutes late, or the colleague sitting next to you talking on the phone too loudly to the phone, suddenly freezing exactly when it is most needed. And that is exactly why we need this chapter, as Bennett does not go looking for macro solutions for global problems, but he focuses on the small scratches in our day, along with the daily annoyances that if we do not know how to deal with, then they can silently erode mental energy to turn a day that should have been fine into a day full of frustration. The first point Bennett wants us to think about is exactly how we react to small, annoying things. Try to remember when the last time you felt annoyed because of something insignificant was, such as a misordered coffee, or the blaring car horns down the street, or someone cutting across your line. Our natural reaction is usually annoyance, along with even anger. But Bennett suggests whether those reactions actually help solve the problem or just make us more tired. This is when the philosophy of Stoicism takes effect, as Bennett does not require us to study deeply about Epictetus or Seneca, but he only wants us to apply a core along with extremely practical principle, being clearly distinguishing two groups of problems, including things you can control and things you cannot. Try to think about it as for the bus being late, then you can control your preparing earlier, along with choosing another route or reporting to the transport company. But you cannot control the bus running time, and being frustrated will not make the bus faster. With a noisy colleague, then you can wear noise-canceling headphones along with politely giving feedback, or even considering changing the workplace if the problem is too serious. But you cannot change the nature of that colleague. When you realize that there are things completely outside of your control, then letting go of the mental burden for them becomes much easier. Bennett wants us to focus energy on what we can influence, along with accepting the truth about what we cannot. As this sounds simple, but practicing it consistently is an art. However, Bennett is not too dry a person, as he also encourages us to maintain humor and gentle sarcasm towards the small injustices of life. Instead of letting frustration take over, then try to look at unpleasant situations with a different eye, such as telling yourself that life really has a sense of humor when giving me a whole rainstorm exactly when I forgot to bring an umbrella, or today the universe decided to test my patience. Humor, even if only a smile or a gentle joke with yourself, has an amazing power in transforming negative energy. It helps you create a safe distance from the problem, along with not letting it touch the deep emotions inside you, just like you are watching a comedy movie about your own life. And all these things eventually point towards a bigger goal, which is maintaining mental poise in all circumstances. Mental poise here can be understood as calmness, along with composure and the ability to maintain a state of emotional balance, no matter how many fluctuations or annoyances occur outside. Imagine your spirit as a lake when daily annoyances are small stones thrown down, because if you overreact, then the lake surface will ripple violently and never be at peace. But if you apply these pocket philosophies to accept what cannot be controlled, along with using humor to neutralize, then your mental lake surface will only ripple slightly for a moment, then return to a state of stillness. Bennett believes that by practicing these simple tips, then, we not only reduce daily stress, but also build a mental safe zone, being a solid fortress inside us. No matter how the storm is outside, then inside you can still maintain peace, because these pocket philosophies are not miracles, but they are simple yet powerful tools to help you train your spirit, along with enhancing resilience and living a more effective, along with less stressful life. Chapter 9: Ultimate Freedom. This name sounds a bit final, doesn't it? As this is the ultimate destination that Bennett wants us to visualize, along with wanting us to reach after all we have learned about time management and mental training, then self-control. Bennett takes us to a state he calls ultimate freedom, which is a concept that I believe every one of us craves, although perhaps not being able to name it clearly yet. So what is ultimate freedom, as it is not unlimited indulgence to do whatever one wants without thinking about consequences? No, as completely the opposite. Then ultimate freedom, according to Bennett, is liberation from invisible chains, along with the shackles that we create for ourselves. Have you ever felt caught up in a bad habit or a momentary urge that you later regret? For example, surfing social networks for hours, along with procrastinating important work until the last minute, or overeating because of emotions. The subsequent feeling of regret, along with self-blame for not being able to control yourself, is exactly the sign that you are a slave to those things. Bennett says that true freedom comes when we are no longer slaves to momentary urges, along with to those ugly habits. You are no longer driven by laziness, along with procrastination and useless cravings, then uncontrolled negative emotions. Freedom is when you stand before a choice and you actively choose the best thing for yourself, along with for your long-term goals, instead of being pulled away by some invisible gravity. That is an unusually relieved feeling, as if you have just shed an invisible burden for a long time. Hearing this, perhaps many people will think discipline sounds too restrictive, along with suffocating, to then wonder how discipline can bring freedom. But Bennett, with his sharp intellect, completely reversed that view when he affirmed that discipline is not shackles, but the key to opening the door of freedom. Think about it as when you learn to play a musical instrument. Then at first, you must practice dry exercises along with aching fingers and disjointed notes being discipline. But when you have become proficient, then you can freely improvise, along with freely perform and freely convey emotions through music, without having to struggle with each note or each chord anymore, because that is freedom. Similarly, when you discipline yourself in time management, then you will have more time to do the things you love. When you are disciplined in mental training, then you will have the ability to perceive issues more deeply, to make wiser decisions in order to thereby be freer in life. Freedom is not doing everything you want, but not being forced to do the things you do not want because of a lack of control, along with a lack of capacity. The joy of discipline is exactly the pride when you master yourself, along with the pride when you create your life exactly as desired, rather than being swept away by the aimless flow of life. And when we achieve that freedom, not only in terms of action, but also in terms of spirit, then Bennett visualizes a comprehensive human being who is a person both strong in intellect and generous in emotion. Strong in intellect means the ability to analyze, along with logical thinking and solving problems effectively, to not be easily swayed by misleading information or subjective opinions, because that is a sharp mind, always searching along with learning and developing. As for emotional generosity, it is the truly beautiful and human part, when that is the ability to understand others, along with not being easily provoked, and knowing how to accept, then forgive. When you master your emotions, then you are no longer easily angry, along with no longer holding unnecessary grudges too. Instead, be able to look at everything calmly. Then put yourself in others' positions to empathize. A generous soul, along with a heart that knows how to love and share, will help you interact with people, where instead of reacting defensively, then you can truly listen along with understand and respond thoughtfully, because that is the power of emotional generosity. Such a person not only lives well for themselves, but also brings positive value to those around them, along with to the community. It sounds ideal, doesn't it? But to achieve this state of ultimate freedom, then Bennett does not say it is a path strewn with roses. It requires an indispensable factor, and also his final advice, which is one of the most important pieces of advice that we need to take to heart, being persistence. We cannot hope to change an entire mental life overnight, because it requires persistent effort, bit by bit, every day. Think about building a house when you cannot build a massive castle in just a few days, but you must lay each brick along with each iron bar and patiently do each stage. Mental training is the same when each good habit you build, along with each moment you control yourself, and each time you choose discipline instead of indulgence, is a brick you lay in the foundation of ultimate freedom. Bennett wants us to understand that this is a lifelong journey, as there will be times when you stumble along, with there will be days when you feel discouraged and want to give up being completely normal. The important thing is that you realize it, to forgive yourself, then stand up and keep going. Exactly at those times, you should remember the destination being the state of ultimate freedom, along with self-mastery and true peace, along with happiness. You should remember that each small step, no matter how trivial it seems, is bringing you closer to the best version of yourself. And so, we have come to the end of the journey that Arnold Bennett outlined in Mental Efficiency, when ultimate freedom is not a single destination, but a state of living, along with a lifestyle where you are the person steering the boat of your life, rather than the boat being driven aimlessly by waves. I hope that through this video series, then you not only find useful knowledge, but also find motivation to start or continue your own journey of mental training. Start today, step by step, along with bit by bit, and do not be afraid of failure, because each stumble is a lesson for us to stand up stronger, along with more persistently. So we have leafed through each page, along with each valuable idea of Arnold Bennett in Mental Efficiency and other hints to men and women together. A book that does not just stop at mere theory, but also evokes a powerful fire of action inside each of us. It is not about becoming a genius, but about optimizing what we already have, which is our brain, to live a more effective, along with fulfilling and meaningful life. It sounds grand, doesn't it, when talking about mastering the brain? But Bennett has pointed out that it starts from small steps, along with from awareness and commitment every day. We do not need to wait for a perfect moment or an explosion of inspiration, because we can start right now. So I have an invitation, or rather, a challenge reserved for you regarding whether you dare to spend the next 7 days truly mastering your brain. Just 7 days when it is not to become a Superman, but to feel the clarity along with focus and efficiency. Then, also the peace that you deserve to have. Try applying 1 or 2 smallest suggestions that Bennett shared, such as maybe spending 30 minutes every day on a specific task without interruption, or simply spending 5 minutes in the morning to plan your day with higher consciousness. Imagine when, in just 7 days, then you can start the journey of changing the way you think, along with the way you react and the way you live. This is not just a book reading challenge, but a challenge of applying books to real life. If you are ready to accept this challenge, if you want to join me and our entire community to start this journey, then type in the comments section right now the phrase, "I master my mind." Typing that down is not just a comment, but it is a declaration, along with a public commitment to yourself and to like-minded people. Let those comments become the roll call of determined souls, along with people who do not accept living an aimless life. We will follow together, along with encourage each other, and celebrate together even the smallest progress. And if you find these in-depth book analyses, along with personal perspectives on self-development and life optimization truly useful, then do not hesitate to press the subscribe button along with the small bell icon next to it. This is to not miss any other videos where we will continue to explore treasures of knowledge from books in order to turn them into practical tools for modern life. let us build an intellectual library together where each book is a step, taking us to a new height. Thank you for taking your precious time to listen along with, reflect, and interact. Remember that the greatest power lies in your choosing to act. See you in the next videos on the journey of mastering your own life.